Yeah, so recording is started, so Mog, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, very warm welcome to everybody again for the second day of this Rulebook and SCCS webinar. My name is Amog Datta, and I will be continuing today with this third session. And then after this session, we will also have a Q&A session. So, I request you to note down any questions or doubts that you may have, and for sure they will be addressed. And, before we dive into the main presentation, I'll just go through what is the agenda of today's presentation. Today we'll be seeing in this session the rulebook part on vehicle controls, electrical controls, various guards, what are the requirements, and fasteners, what is the requirement regarding your fasteners, and how you should identify and have markings on your vehicles. We'll go through that part in detail. It was discussed yesterday as well. Now let's move on to presentation. First, we'll go to vehicle controls. This is a very crucial control, and as you all know, one of the main controls is braking. Now, the brake system, what you should do in the brake system, how you should think that the brake system that must be operated with a single foot and should lock all the wheels at the same time. This is discussed from time to time again and again, but you should keep in mind that all the wheels must be locked, otherwise you won't be able to clear the brake test. And again, in the brake system, the link between your pedals and the master cylinders, there is a link, and that link has to be rigid. You cannot keep any link that is flexible. Now, while designing the brake pedal, it is also very important to remember that the design should be such that this pedal has to withstand the force of 2000 newtons, which roughly translates to around 200 kgs. It may not go in practical or maybe your calculations or any external book that you may refer, but as considering the safety of your drivers, this has to be followed. Now, it is also recommended to keep brake pedal on the right side because most drivers are, right-footed. So, from right foot only, they will be able to apply more effective braking and effective force. And remember that if you are opting for this right side pedal, the clearance bit of 40 mm has to be maintained between your throttle pedal and brake pedal. That clearance will be checked during your technical inspection. Now, moving on to your throttle system, as you can see here, stated here, that you have to make sure that when pedal is fully pressed, the throttle arm on the engine, there is throttle arm that should be actuated at 100% as well. And it also should return to 0% when the pedal is released without any play or any lag. And the throttle cable that you are using, that has to be fully covered inside your cockpit from pedal till firewall. Now you have to keep in mind that as highlighted here with the picture, that your throttle cable is not allowed to have more than 15 degrees of angle or deviation at any point while you are routing the cable from pedal to engine. That angle will also be checked during your technical evaluation. So keep that in mind, and I hope you will be feeling that in SCCS as well. Now coming to other control systems such as compressed gas systems. These are only allowed to basically these systems are only allowed to ease the driver's tasks such as shifting gears. Like from if you're opting for a transfer case, you can shift from four-wheel drive to two-wheel drive, etc. But these systems are strictly not allowed to help in vehicle propulsion in any way. So you cannot use this to give additional power to your vehicle in any manner. That you have to keep in mind. And also these, when you are using these systems, they shall also have to contain only non-flammable or non-oxidized gases. Now the storage of these gases is also very critical, which is why they must be stored in the uh, tanks that has to be certified by OEM along with a valid testing certificate. You have to produce the testing certificate whenever you will be asked. The mounting of these cylinders that also must be such that they are protected from any rolling components like your shafts or any nearby wheels or any rolling component. It has to be protected from them. And they also have to be insulated from any excessive heat. So if you're planning to keep them behind your firewall, you have to keep them insulated properly. Otherwise, it is a very risky system. We'll move on to next point, which is cockpit. And what are the requirements of your cockpit? The very basic role of the cockpit is that it should protect driver in any and all conditions of your vehicle. It may roll, it may topple, but your driver has to be protected. And also, your driver should be able to exit the vehicle within 5 to 10 seconds whenever required in cases of any emergencies. Now the cockpit must be separated from engine with a firewall, and that firewall has to be at least 0.5 mm thick. The thickness will be measured, and your cockpit also must have body panels covering the area between your LFS and side impact member (SIM), and also there are no gaps allowed more than 0.25 inches, like a quarter of inch, in these panels, so that anything will not protrude from those panels to your driver. Now, for the skid plates, any of these materials, there are different three types of materials given here: steel, aluminum, fiber, or plastic, or any equivalent. Now, these are allowed, or you can also use them in combination. But only you have to keep in mind that you must uh, have minimum thickness requirement successfully meeting. Again, for the fire extinguisher, that is also inside a cockpit. So you have to have any of these mounts Drake manufactured by Drake. So these models, these are also given in the rule book. You can use any of them. Now yes, you have got the model numbers, so it is easy to purchase any mounts, but you have to mount them properly. So how you will mount them? That we'll see in this part. We have also seen many teams struggling with this. So just keep a focus on this. These mountings shall be in the plane of RRH, which is also given in the rule book, and these should be mounted on RRH member with help of steel tabs. And those steel tabs have to have minimum thickness of 3 mm. And to operate this mounting properly, I mean, whenever required, you need to take out the fire extinguisher very quickly. So to operate this properly, there has to be 2.5 inches of radial clearance, as you can see in a picture, first picture over here. So that radial clearance is required. And the main thing you should ensure that the pull knob is not hindered by any of your roll cage members or anything else. It has to be easier to pull. Now we'll move on to powertrain guards. Now these are very crucial when we consider technical evaluation, because many teams, even old teams, experienced teams, are struggling with this. So these are very simple rules actually. Now the powertrain guards can be made of any of these two materials, steel or aluminum. Again, provided that you meet this minimum thickness criteria I mentioned here, like 1.5 mm for steel and 3 mm for aluminum. Now, also, you can see that the finger guard, there is in when you are having a powertrain guard, there are two types of guards here indicated in red and blue. So these red guards, which are required compulsorily, those only those have to be have this minimum thickness. And when you install these finger guards, which are marked in blue, they can have less thickness than this if you want, but they have to be firm mesh. If you are using mesh structure, or even if you are using less thickness structure, it should not be flexible or should bend in any kind. It has to be firm, and that will be checked, because that clearance is very crucial when your vehicle is running. Also, keep in mind that there shouldn't be any gaps. So whenever you weld these components together, there shouldn't be any gaps between your finger guards or any welds or anywhere near your powertrain guards. Now, next thing, we'll look at the powertrain breather system. So this is a vent or a breather system for powertrains. Now, these vent lines must maintain a distance of at least 100 mm in any direction from the engine exhaust to avoid heating. Make sure these lines are not getting pinched anywhere. That also you should make sure. And you have to make a small hole in this frame member, as you can see here. And in that hole, your vent line must end at inside that hole and not before anywhere before. So there is also an exception for engine exhaust vent lines. So they don't have to terminate inside a frame member, but whenever you are going for this exception to be applied, so keep in mind that this applies only when your vent line is greater than 18 inches in distance from engine or exhaust component. So at least 18 inches away from any nearest engine or exhaust component in any direction. So you have to keep in mind in all directions it maintains that distance, then you can have you do not need to terminate these lines inside the member. Now moving on to the guards on the drive shafts. So as you can see in this diagram, the drive shaft must have these two hoops which are marked in purple. Now these hoops have to be 30 mm wide on either side of the joint, as also mentioned in the rule book, or it should be at least till meeting gearbox if it is closer than 30 mm distance. Now the hoops must be placed within 2 inches of your 1/3 and 2/3 length of your drive shaft. So whatever your length of your drive shaft is, you have to uh, keep the three. You have to divide it in three, and in both those parts on exactly, you have to place your hoops. But you are allowed some relaxation, because there might be some difficulty to place exactly at that point. So you can place it within 2 inches of that point. And also these hooks shall be 1 inch wide, and that material requirement should be same as the other powertrain guards that that we previously saw. Coming to the electrical system. So this is a basic layout of what is mandatory for all the BAJA vehicles. So there must be two independent circuits. One is for the brake light, as you can see here, and another is for the kill switches. And for the vehicles that have reverse gear, especially E-BAJA or A-BAJA, uh, uh, for them it is mandatory to have a reverse light mounted. That is also compulsory. Now, in these kill switches, let's have a deeper look in the kill switches. So your vehicle must have minimum two kill switches, and only these models that you can see here, Polaris, Ski-Doo, WPS. So only these are allowed, and no rotary switch is allowed. You can see the picture. That type of rotating switches are strictly not allowed. And one of the two mandatory kill switches, so there are two. One must be inside your cockpit, within the reach of the driver. Driver should be able to operate it very easily. And along with when driver is equipped with his full equipment and driver is trained and driving suit, everything. With that, he should be easily able to operate it without any problem. And one more thing that you should keep in mind while fixing the position of this kill switch is that sometimes it happens that the driver, knees of the driver or elbows of the driver stick to that kill switch and it gets operated. So that also will not be allowed. You have to keep the switch away from his knees and elbows. It also should not affect your driver egress. So while getting out of the vehicle, make sure that your driver's feet are not getting stuck between the mounting of kill switch or kill switch itself. Now, this second mandatory kill switch that we'll talk about it. So, as you can see in this diagram, it is externally mounted, and it should be exactly at this position, which is marked in this picture. Uh, it should be perpendicular to your RRH, but you have 15 degrees of tolerance. You can you have only that much tolerance there. Now, this switch must be, that should also be protected in case your vehicle has rollover or maybe topples or anything happens. That switch should not be hampered. So you have to fix the position accordingly. And to access this kill switch, even in rolled condition, it should, whenever your vehicle is upside down or in any condition, it should be easily operatable. So keep in mind that thing also. And below here, there are two pictures that you can see. In the first picture, you can see the welded metal tabs, which are used for mounting of the kill switch. These are strictly not allowed. And in the second picture, you can see the bolted mounting tabs. So only that type of mounting is allowed for kill switches. Now coming to this mandatory brake light. Only these models of the brake light are allowed to be used. And you can also use, if you don't want to have this any of these models, you can also use brake light from any Indian OEMs, from Indian manufacturers. Uh, then you are good to go. The light, this light should be placed 1 meter above the ground, and it has to be visible from at least 20 meters of distance from your vehicle. So whenever you fix the position of that light, you please make sure that it is visible from distance of at least 20 meters. Now to operate these brake lights, only this hydraulic switches are allowed. Any other switches that are push type switches indicated here in the picture, so those are not allowed. And as you have two independent brake circuits, you should have two different hydraulic pressure switches. And one more point that you have to remember, that this brake light must work even if your kill switch is pressed or not working. That is why you are strictly, it is said that you have to have two independent electrical circuits, one for brake light and one for the kill switches. Now, next is requirements of your batteries. As you can see here, these batteries should be sealed, and you have to use a maintenance-free type of batteries. And you have to, for many EMBA vehicles, what happens is the batteries are very small. But even if they are small and you can keep them as it is, the requirement is that these batteries have to be mounted. So please make sure that you mount them somewhere, have a proper mounting and firm mounting that will not come off anywhere during the event. Now, for the reverse light, for those vehicles having reverse gear, the lights are only LED type lights are allowed, as you can see, and it should be mounted 700 mm above the ground. And reverse light should meet or exceed at least this SAE standard J759. You can note it, or it is also given in the rule book. And it has to be marked with SAE R, SAE rated R on lens. Now, along with the reverse light, reverse alarm also has you can use, or you can. But for that alarm, you have to meet this SAE standard J1741 or J994, any of these standards. And you have to make sure that it sounds whenever the gear is shifted and not when the vehicle starts moving in the reverse direction. Now, coming to tow points on your vehicles. So there must be two tow points on your vehicle. One is in the front and one is in the rear. So first we look at front tow point. Now these front toe points have to be made of tubular steel and should lie in the plane created by your SIM and LFS. As you can see in this picture, it is in the plane created by SIM and LFS. And all dimensions of these toe points are mentioned here. So you can see in the red letters, there are dimensions mentioned. And in the rule book also they are mentioned. So make sure that you meet all these dimensional requirements. We also recommend you to make a hitch tool to verify the dimension that your toe point is meeting these dimensions. You can make it yourself in the college. The dimensions of this hitch tool are given in the rule book. You can find them easily. And now for the rear toe point, this must be made of steel strictly, and this must meet all these dimensional requirements. Especially, I will highlight this minimum tab thickness, which has to be 6 mm. That is amended in the recently amended rulebook release. You can check the amended table. Yesterday it was told how to check the amendments. Now the same is also given in the rule. And you have to keep in mind that whenever you are fixing this rear toe point or hitch plate, it has to be welded to your roll cage, and any kind of bolting or any other joint are strictly not allowed. Uh, we'll see fasteners and what are their requirements. You may follow, best engineering practices or everything else in your design, but you also have to give as much importance when you are assembling the vehicle and uh, completing the vehicle. You have to give as much importance to fasteners as well. All the rules regarding fasteners, all these rules, they apply to all the critical areas of vehicle, such as your driver harness, fuel system, fire extinguishers, kill switches, battery, powertrain mounts. So pretty much it applies to everywhere except for your body panels and some other systems that may not have some much load. So these fasteners have to meet or exceed these grades as mentioned here, SAE grade 5 or metric grade 8.8. This is also mentioned in the rule book. Now all the critical locations that I mentioned, it is mandatory to use nylon lock nuts or cotter pins or safety wires. So wherever applicable, you should have those kind of pins. For example, some teams use uh, ends of the drive shaft on the wheel ends, uh, OEM ends. So they also have a quarter pin or split pin kind of arrangement. So they have to be pins have to be inserted in it for you to clear the technical evaluation and also during the event. Uh, Yeah, it is also observed that many teams are going for weight reduction in many things, even cutting the fasteners, or maybe they have excess length of fasteners and then they cut it. So please make sure whenever you are cutting, you have to answer that why you have cut some particular fastener to your technical evaluation just. And also, if you are cutting, it has to have at least two threads projecting out of the net that you have to keep in mind. If you are not having two threads projecting out of the net, you will be asked to replace your fasteners. There is also one more point to keep in mind that you have for your easier technical evaluation process that we grade markings that you are using, that's this specific grade SAE or metric whatever. So these grade markings should be visible clearly on your fastener, so it won't consume much of your time during your technical evaluation. Now let's see the regulations regarding identification and markings on your vehicles. So what are they? One of the main identification component of your vehicle is your transponder. So basically your vehicle must have minimum two transponders which are fully functional, and make sure you have an active subscription of transponders while coming. Only these transponders are accepted: Classic MX, Flex MX, or X2 MX. Only these three types will be accepted. Any other transponder will not be accepted, even if it is from the same manufacturer. Now let's look at the location and orientation of the transponder, how it should be placed. So you have to make sure that you mount these transponders in this area. You can see the yellow marked area. It is preferred to have in green marked area, but for some reason any of your component is there, you are allowed to have anywhere in this yellow marked area in the bottom corner image. So also they must be on the right side of your vehicle. That is also in the image. So keep in mind, do not place it on the left side. This should be within 24 inches above the ground level. You cannot place it above 24 inches. So just because I'm marking a yellow area and a green area here, that does not mean it is allowed anywhere. You have to also make sure of your height, because there is a different ride height for different vehicles. Now these two transponders, you have to use two transponders. They should be at least 300 apart from each other, so that they will be detected easily. The 300 distance also will be checked during your technical evaluation process. And these transponders should be mounted vertically. So you can see in this figure, this picture here, up and forward, it is given here. So exactly in this manner, they should be mounted. Moving to another identification of your vehicle. So your vehicle is also identified by your vehicle numbers. Now, the very first thing about numbers is that it should be visible from all sides, any from anywhere, anybody should be able to see the number very clearly. So, and it should have high contrast for easier and clear visibility. So, some high contrast examples are also given on the screen. We can see. And so there are total three numbers that you have to place for your vehicle number. One should be in the front and two numbers on the side. So these side numbers, whatever you are having on the sides of your vehicles, on the left and right, these should be mounted above your SIM and behind the plane of RRH. So somewhere near to your external kill switch position, around that position only, you have to mount your numbers. And while making your vehicle numbers, yeah, remember that only these two fonts are allowed: Highway Gothic Regular and Century Gothic Bold. Only these two fonts are allowed. Any other font will not be allowed. The numbers, these numbers also have to make less than 45 degrees of angle with vertical when fixed on your vehicle. So whenever you are fixing these numbers, just try to measure its angle approximately, and it should be less than 45 degrees so that it can be viewed very clearly from any distance. And also, as you can see in this picture on the left side here, number 84, D and H letters are marked. So as per this picture, you have to have this front numbers. It is for front numbers. So this shall have a minimum height of 6 inches at least. You can have even more. And clearance, it should have a clearance with outside edges of your front background of these numbers. It should have clearance of at least 1 inch from all the sides of your background. The projecting face of these numbers must be minimum 0.5 inch, half inch from your background panel. So whatever is your background panel, make sure your numbers are at least 0.5 inches away from it. So they are coming out of your background panel. For the sponsor identification, previously we saw what is your vehicle identification. Now, some vehicles have a sponsor. So for the sponsor identification, let's see what are the requirements. You can display your vehicle sponsors, you are allowed, but keep in mind that it should not conflict with your team number or your technical evaluation stickers or anything else that is very, dynamic event stickers. Those are very mandatory, and if it is hindering with them, you will be asked to remove your sponsor identification. So just keep in mind that you keep a space of 10 inches by 10 inches for these technical evaluation stickers. Uh, so that will be end of this third session, and next session will be continued by Mayur. But before that, there is a Q&A session regarding this session. So if you have any doubts, whatever was discussed during this session, you can post in chat. Uh, Good question, Parag. So yes, as it is mentioned in the rule book, the answer is same. You can have it, but you should be able to justify. So the criteria for justification is if you do not get, if it is very different size, or maybe you are not getting that size, or have any constraint in length of standard fasteners, or maybe diameter, anything else, then you are allowed to have. But you have to show the proper calculations that why you are selecting the particular diameter and particular size of your fastener. And if you can prove that it is okay and it is safe, so then you will be allowed. Otherwise, you have to use the grades mentioned in the rule book. Uh, is anybody else having any doubts or any questions? You can post in chat as well. Otherwise, we'll continue with the next session. Yes, that is correct. That it is mentioned in the rule book that these switches has to be pushed to kill. So maybe the language is not simpler or anything, but so I like I just explained, only the push type kill switches will be allowed, and the models that are given only those will be allowed. The rotary type of kill switches in any manner will not be allowed. You will be asked to change. So better have push type kill switches from the start.
Adding to what Amog has said, we have four types of recommended kill switches which are already in the given in the rule book. So you can refer that, and it is only push to kill type.
Your belly pan should cover your entire cockpit. I mean, whenever your driver is entering, there should not be any gaps. So you are allowed to have gaps under your seat, but very small gaps, and also under your front gearbox.
Also, you can refer to B8.6 for the skid plates, that is also belly pan. And the main aim of the belly pan is that driver should not contact the ground and it is protected from the debris while seated in normal sitting position. So whatever is beneath the driver, you can say that should be protected with belly pan. So for your question, covering under the shaft doesn't count as belly pan. So in the belly pan rule, it is very clearly mentioned that it is applicable only for the cockpit area. It is the first line is the cockpit must be fitted with a belly pan over the entire length. So it is applicable only for the cockpit area, belly pan.
Yes, it is mandatory to have push to kill switches for EBAHA as well. For all four competitions, it applies to all four competitions. HBAHA, EBAHA, ABAHA, doesn't matter.
So teams, do we have any other doubts or we can move forward with the presentation? So you have a question is for the clearance between each vehicle number. So if you go with the rule book, the font and the dimensions of the each letters are clearly specified. But for the difference between vehicle numbers, you should have a clear visibility of the number in the specified angle. You have to follow the font and the dimensions of each particular number. And for the side body panel, you can use any material. Yeah, we have one more question, like for minimum thickness for side body panels, there is no specific rule for the minimum thickness of the side body panels, but the driver should be protected from the outside debris while in the normal sitting position. And there is no specific material rule also for this, for the side panels. It should be thick enough to protect the driver from the debris. And one more addition I would like to make for the e-BAJA, rotate to energize type is also allowed. Atish Varan had a question for e-BAJA, so rotate is also allowed for e-BAJA in addition to push to quit. Does any team has any other question, or we can proceed with Mayur presentation? If you have any other questions, please note it down as of now, and we can see at the end of the presentation. So, Mayur, you can proceed with
Yep.
the presentation.
Yep. Thanks, Chandramani. Thanks, Amok. Before I begin, I would like to highlight that if there is some problem in case of slide change or something, you can interrupt me in between and I can reshare it again. So nobody will have a problem. Chandramani, that should be okay. So, yep, let's begin then.
Yeah, it's completely fine, Mayur.
Yep, sure. Yeah, thanks, Amok, for the presentation. So moving on the last part of this webinar for SCCS and the rulebook part, which we have covered so far. So the last section I will be covering for the build quality and some other aggregates which are not yet covered in the previous sessions. So yeah, my name is Mayur Shinde. I'm a research engineer at FAB India, Pune. I'm currently working into transmission development. So yeah, and TEJ for 2024 BAJA SAEINDIA India. Yep. So let's begin. So yeah, so the build quality which we will be I'll be covering are the following, like brakes, drivetrain, body aesthetic, suspension, steering, and some more part out of it. So yeah, let's begin. Yeah. So the important point whenever team faces during the design phase or whenever they are in the phase of selection of components, aggregating them together, it's very important for teams to have an accurate engineering justification of their design, because that's where most of the things can get wrong on that part. Why the brake section is selected at the first? Because we have observed that most of the teams have a very bad, I would say, a record in case of technical inspection in the brake side, because most of the teams fail to pass the criteria for the locking of wheels at the event side. and that is a very important part of elimination in case of technical inspection, because at that point you get only 2 attempts, and after the 2 attempts you cannot give the third attempt. So that will be the first. After the first attempt you get a second attempt, but after the second attempt you don't get the third attempt. So the second attempt is the deadline for you to clear the bricks, locking of all the bricks. So it is very much important that you have a good design. Also, foolproofing of design, like the second point which we have here, like foolproofing of design of custom components. Like we have observed that many teams have designed and manufactured their custom components of brakes to reduction of weight, and that's a really good sign that teams are motivated to design and manufacture their components of their own to reduce the weight and to optimize the design. But on the other hand, if you see the flip side, it's very much important that you have a good manufacturing processes, good heat treatment processes for the components which require those, because at the end of the day, this component has to function the intended purpose. So the purpose of a brake is to stop the vehicle in a specified distance. So that's the important part of a design. So that's where the performance comes into play. So it's very much important that for us to counter or to eliminate those inaccuracies which we can get into during the design or manufacturing. So yeah, integration of brakes with other subsystems, like as everybody is almost on the completion of their vehicle, most of the teams might have finished their vehicles as well. So you might have faced much of the problems when assembling of rotors, your calipers, your hub assembly. So like the integration of various subsystem. So this point is why this point is crucial, because we find it really easy in assembling the components as per the design, but when it comes to the performance part, when we drive the vehicle and when there is some sort of problems happening, let's say one of the wheel is not locking, so that can have some mechanical problems, that can have some hydraulic problems. So integration of all the systems in the brake is a crucial part here. Also, proper routing of brake lines and clearance between the system, because this part is important not just in terms of the technical inspection, but it is also in terms of the performance part. Because if the sufficient clearances between the subsystem are not kept, then it can have impact on the performance. Like it can create a noise, it can in the rotating environment, it can damage something for in your subsystem, or it can happen that some of your sub assemblies are loose, then it can eventually cause a big problem there. So that's not a good sign to whenever we are doing so we have to take care of these spots. Yeah, the proper functionality of brakes. So as you might be aware that the brake bleeding process is a very crucial part, and most of the teams face a really good amount of problem in case of brake bleeding, and we have observed in many years that brake bleeding is a big issue. It is issue also because of the sub assemblies which are present in the brakes, because at the design phase we don't consider this manufacturing possibilities, and eventually when we are manufacturing, then we get to know that, oh, this is not actually feasible to do it. So but then we do some sort of jugaad there, and then eventually we try to cope up. But yeah, that will not help, because this is an elimination part of the event. So please make sure that you do it at as an utmost priority for you. So this is very important part. So yeah, moving forward for the drivetrain. So design modularity. So here, what does a design modularity mean? Design modularity is like an combination of all those sub-assemblies which are present. It can be engine, your CVTs, your gearboxes, your drive shafts, your wheels, and so on and so forth. Like here, it's very much important to all the components should function as one module. So every part of the system shall not be a different subsystem than each other. So all should function or coordinate with each other. So that's the modularity concept. When we design, it is really kind of fascinating that it should work in the real world. But in practical sense, if you try to do it, it's quite challenging, and it sometimes teams face a problem uh, in case of mounting, in case of placing the angles between them, or reducing the vibration. So this part of problems every team faces, but it is up to the team's design and their engineering skills, which they have to ensure that all the things are in place, and they have to counter these problems. Also, one more point which we often forget is, like, whenever we are mounting the engine, the exhaust side of the engine should not face the firewall, and if it is facing the firewall, then the rerouting of the exhaust should also be in place. Most of the teams, what they see is, like, they neglect that part. They say it like, on the day 0 or day 1, we will just make that rerouting in case of once we reach the event, and then we can do some small sort of stuff. So, but I would really not advise you to do so. You just have to make sure that everything which you have asked for in SCCS, like self-certification check sheet, you should definitely comply that. You don't post the photos from the last year and you submit it. So it's not a good practice. It will hamper you in the long run for the event, because in the technical inspection, if the technical judge found that you have done something different than the SCCS, then it might consume your 1 or 2 days, and eventually on the last day, it's really tough to clear the technical inspection, and like, not a good choice by the teams as well. So everybody should attempt the TI on the very first day. Yeah. So, like, the component lubrication and cooling. So yeah, so like the image which we see here, this is for the CVT cooling. So we all know there are various problems associated with the CVTs from the temperature point of view. So it is really important for the teams to design a cooling system, air-cooled system for this, and also to reroute this pipe. Basically, this pipe is also sometimes a problem for the teams to reroute, and also sometimes technical inspection team might ask you to reroute in such a way that it doesn't have any problem in case of safety. So make sure that you have a good rerouting for this CVT cooling pipe as well. So tuning and validation, like, you all are aware that like, you all have already done the IPG car maker stuff, and also the specification sheet you have already filled. So you are already aware about this point, the tuning and the validation, that you already have the gear ratios into your design. Then tuning the CVT. Why this point is important? Because it is always a good exercise to do it, not just because of the acceleration or the good amount of traction, but it is also in terms of the performance durability during the endurance, because the vehicle has to run for long hours, approximately 4 hours. So the tuning of the CVT, the cooling of the CVT should be at most priority for us, and also it has to be validated basically. But and how it should be validated? By testing your vehicle to your extreme limits. That's the key here. Like, on the design or on the IPG car maker, whatever you put the input, the result will be based on that input. But it is not the case in case of the real world car, because when you run the vehicle for some kilometers, you will find, okay, this is the problem. Like, we have some problems in tie rods, we have some problems in the suspension joints, we have some problems in case of stiffness of the suspension. So that problems you would eventually encounter when you are driving the vehicle, and once you are driving the vehicle, your driver should be well aware about those situations. Your driver should be experienced enough to understand what is happening to his car, why the handling is not is in control. So that's where the validation parts come in. Like this validation part also is important in case of other parameters as well, like as we go on forward. Yeah, so like the body in aesthetics, like most of the teams might have some questions regarding this part as well. So basically, as Chandramani has also said, that you are free to use the body panel material, but the only durability criteria is that it should not tear off in case of any crash. So crashes can happen, so that's the that can be a parameter of consideration. So whenever you are selecting a material for the body panels, you should be aware that the thickness and the material should be strong enough, because in case of any damages, in case of any crash, if your body panels are teared off, then your vehicle aesthetics will eventually not be good. So it shows that the teams are not uh, sound enough to select a material for a body panel. So I would request every team to really look into this part, because as yesterday also we have discussed the 8 aggregator points here, right? So they are the performance and the aesthetics. So as important as the performance is, it is also important to have a good aesthetics of the vehicle, because that's where the everybody will take an eye on it, and they will eventually have a perceived quality of it. Because if your vehicle is good looking, if your vehicle is good to eyes, then eventually you will have a better impression on the technical evaluation judges, and also in the overall event you will have a good picture as a team. So that the body panels is one of the parameters into the aesthetics. Yeah, the painting and powder coating. So as we all aware that we have to paint the roll cages. So roll cage and the suspension link can be powder coated and well painted in order to avoid rusting. So yeah, so that's a really important point here, because most of the vehicles will eventually not be only for the event. They will be there as a part of their legacy for the colleges. So eventually in the coming years, your juniors will also join, and they will also know that this was the car from our seniors. So that gives us a good feeling for the juniors as well. Firewall and the belly pan mounting. So I guess one of the question was there regarding the belly pan mounting. So belly pan is nothing but the section which is running down the driver's feet. So that's the belly pan, and the firewall is the section which is towards the back of the driver. So that's the firewall. So belly pan should be strong enough to carry weight of the driver. That is quite obvious that the material selection should be really good, because that's where the because the debris which is coming out of the floor should not should not disturb the driver, or should not hamper the safety of the driver as well, because it's not just only mud, or it's not just the water. Any stone or anything can come up. So that's a point to be really looked after. Proper splash shield design. This part we'll discuss in detail. We have a separate section for this splash shield as well. Fasteners, yeah. So actually, like yesterday also there was some question regarding the fasteners, and today also there was a question in case of fasteners. There are two things I would like to highlight in case of fasteners here. One thing is whenever you are using a fasteners, that you are already aware that there should be SAE graded or metric grade. But one thing which everybody forgets is like having a proper torques. So torque of the fastener is really important. So whatever you put a torque on a fasteners, it is kind of gives you a confidence that this fastener will eventually be safer in operation. And like most of the teams do it hand tightening to such an extreme that it can completely shear off in case of extreme loading. So it happens with many teams that for the suspension mounting points, the bolts which are present in the suspension mounting points, and if they get excessive load from the wheel, and then the bolts can completely shear off because the torques are not proper. So eventually it's really a good habit of having a torque wrench in your workshop. Everybody might be aware about the torque wrench. Have a proper torque on the bolts, because once you have a graded fasteners, you also know the torque limit for that. So it's not just like you are just tightening with the hand and then trying to make it safer from your side. Like, now I cannot push. That's it. That's the torque. That's not the torque actually. So the safer torque you have to decide with the help of torque wrenches, and you have to understand the logic behind the fasteners, because this is a really crucial part, because the fasteners will hold everything in place whenever your vehicle is in running. So it's really a crucial part. Second thing, one the question was asked regarding the fasteners was like that can we remove or can we machine the shank of the bolt? So to be really honest, this part of the fasteners is really tricky. You can be sent back in case of technical inspection if you don't have any engineering justification to it, because eventually the two threads of a bolt has to be there. But if that part is safety critical, then eventually that decision will be made by the technical evaluation judge, and we will not recommend you to machine or to cut any fasteners related to the safety related things. Like, it can be a powertrain, it can be related to the suspension mounting points, or it can be brakes. So like, it's really tricky to do that. But if you have a good justification, if you can convince the technical evaluation judge, that's up to you. That's the risk you carry with you. But I would really recommend you guys to, if you have done so far, then try to find a substitute for that, and don't cut that bolt to such an extent that you cannot have a justification to prove in case of technical inspection. So that's my take on it. Yeah. So moving forward, yeah. So selection of suspension geometry and type, like we are already way ahead of this process. Like, we have already selected, we have already made our vehicles ready to the technical inspection, to the at least at the college level. So yep. So it is also an choice that you can have a double wishbone suspension, you can use a Fox suspension. Like, there are multiple suspension types you can use, but it lies at the very early stage of design. But one thing is here, it's important, like whenever you are manufacturing, it's important to validate those suspension geometry parameters. Like, let's say for instance, you have some sort of problem with your Fox, or like the pressures of the Fox. So it is really important to understand your suspension geometry first. So adjusting the pressure, adjusting the ride height. So because that will eventually help you in help you in having a good performance of your vehicle, because eventually whatever calculations you have done based out of that suspension geometry or that parameters, so that parameters will not help you if the manufacturing is not done in that fashion. So that's a really important point here. Wheel alignment, like the camber caster toe. So the same point, like the whatever the manufacturing deviations which we see during the manufacturing, we can surely cross check after the parameters are like, we can measure those. Component durability, like everybody might have seen, like experienced team might have seen these issues. Component durability. So proper mounting of dampers to avoid twisting. Wheel hub and assembly needs to be durable enough. There are multiple incidents in the BAJA endurance events where most of the knuckles, most of the tie rods, most of the suspension mounting points, many drive shafts, and many other critical failure points we have seen, and also experienced team might have also seen those. So it is really a good practice that you test your vehicles to the extreme, because eventually what components you feel that you're confident of will not be the case in case of the actual event, because many good teams have suffered in past and they have a good experience out of it. So just wanted to highlight this point, that don't take BAJA track like in a, I would say, as a non-serious parameter, I would say, in the consideration, because the track is really tough and every year the track difficulties are increasing, and it is also testing the limits of the teams as well. So it is really a good exercise to push your testing efforts, because that will eventually increase your chances of winning the event as well. Conformance of suspension parameters, it is still the same. So what parameters we have done? So having a DAQ, data acquisition system, can use to validate the suspension parameters. Like data acquisition system in this case would be your IPG car maker, what you have done so far, that's your DAQ for that. Vehicle dynamics assessment and tuning, subjective analysis. So here in case of vehicle dynamics, here vehicle subjective analysis, here it means that every team will have its own analysis, and also it will have its own problems eventually. So every team will have a different dynamic situations. So they have to ensure that they counter it before coming to the event. Yep, steering geometry. This is also a very early stage design parameter, but it is also an important part whenever we are doing for a steering geometry, because let's say whenever you are manufacturing it, both the steering arms should be of equal length, both the steering arms should be having an equal angle, because the right turn should not be greater than the left turn. So this is a small example, I would say, which can be given for this parameter, because if a left turn is greater than your right turn, whenever you are facing a maneuverability, your right turn will eventually hit the obstacle and then you will face a penalty there. So basically having an accurate selection plus the manufacturing element into it, because now every team is way ahead in their journey and almost on the verge of coming to the event. So now it's time for you to check the manufacturing feasibility, because that will ensure your success in the event. Interference check in the design phase, like this is an important parameter here, because this time we have four-wheel drive compulsory. So if we have a four-wheel drive compulsory, then the clearances between this cockpit area are very stringent to the teams. And also this parameter is already quite elaborated in the in the rule book, because the accelerator and the brake pedal should have a minimum distance of 40 mm between each other. There should not, the ergonomics should be such that the interference between the other components should not be there. So these are some of the critical areas which technical inspection will really look seriously into this, because it's not only the driver who will be sitting in the car, it's also a technical evaluation judge who will be sitting inside the car and checking all the controls of the vehicle, because it's not only about the driver, it is about the technical inspection as well, because the technical inspection judge will eventually decide the safety element in the car. Yeah, so the component durability, so as I was mentioning, that a reduction in the play of a steering wheel, having and loose tie rod ends, having loose bolting, cutting the threads, then not using the lock nuts, not using the nylon lock nuts or thread lockers. So this is some sort of manufacturing inaccuracies which team encounter, and that's where the teams are sent back to change those parameters. So that is like just reiterating the things which I've already said. Design conformance and validation. So this is one of the best example, like I was giving, like for this suspension steering geometry as well, like the turning circle radius. Let's say you have an 10 meter of turning circle radius. You have designed your vehicle. So if your turning circle radius, if you go on a playground of your college and then if you try to do a complete turn out of it, and if you try to measure the turning circle radius in meters, if it doesn't come, if it is less or greater, some sort of tolerance is still acceptable, but the conformance part, so you should be able to understand that validation part as well, because it is a good exercise to do such kind of things, because eventually you should, nobody likes to lose a event based out of less scoring. So this are good scoring areas in case of maneuverability, in case of endurance, because driver has to, it's only the driver who will be taking care of the vehicle. The whole the team will be sitting in the pits, and what car we give to the driver, that will bring out the results. So yeah, I would highly recommend to go for a validation part now, because the design, the manufacturing are almost on the verge of finishing up, because it's almost the end of November. So now I would request every team to go for validation and the testing phase. Yeah. So conclusion, what conclusions we can draw out of this? Like, make sure the vehicle is complying to all the aspects of the rule book. This is the like a Bible thumb rule, I would say. So because this is the key area where we all should be focusing, and wherever you feel like the rule book parameters are not sufficiently elaborated, you can anytime come to the forum and you can post the your questions, and we are happy to answer. Validate the vehicle for the conformance of the design. Like, yeah, this is the critical element of the process for us now at this stage at least. Keep 8 dimensions of quality in mind while designing the vehicle. So yeah, which we already saw last time, but to really brief in short, like, one is the performance part and one is the aesthetics parts. So whenever you are looking at any parameter, let's say for instance, if you are having looking at, let's say, drive shafts, for instance. So what is the performance, like whether it's a performance criteria or aesthetic part criteria? So even like it's really obvious that it's a performance criteria. So what is important in case of drive shafts? The drive shaft angle from the ground, the length of the drive shafts, the flexibility between the gearboxes. So if you are using the CV joints or something, that's where the things come in, and you try to have your brainstorming sessions, like you might be having in your teams as well, that how we can improve the quality and all. So it is one of the a key area which you should focus on. Aesthetics of the vehicle should be pleasing to eyes. Yeah, as I already said, that this is a kind of a perceived quality to anybody who is looking at the car, and eventually that's the quality of the team as well, because that's where you have put your 1 year of effort, and whatever you come out of it, that's the end result of it. So if it's a good looking car, then eventually nobody will see the perceive like the performance part, because the whatever will happen at the end, that's the end result. But at this point, what will be happening, we will be just looking at the vehicle, and we'll be understanding uh, the pleasingness to the eyes, or like the feel of the car basically. Vehicle must be checked as per the tech inspection sheet, SCCS. Like SCCS, it stands for self certification check sheet. So yesterday I saw one question regarding the SCCS as well, that what would be the process of having the SCCS. I'll really brief it in short for the new teams, that the self certification check sheet is a parameter or a technical sheet which has almost more than 400 line items, which has all the things related with the from engine to your body panels, everything. So everything is there in the self-certification check sheet, and this sheet is of prime importance when you come to the technical evaluation, because without this sheet you would not be able to clear your technical inspection. You have to carry this technical inspection with you all the time. This technical inspection sheet should be same whatever you have submitted online to the BAHA. So it will also be cross-checked that the self-certification check sheet which you have submitted online and which we have received at the time of technical inspection at the event is the same. If it is not, then there will be some sort of discussions happening at the event site, and that discussions or that decisions will be made at that time. But I would highly recommend everybody, do not do any sort of SCCS changes, because that can also be an elimination criteria for the teams. So I will advise you to do not change, because as per the rules of BAHA also, no changes are allowed in the SCCS once you submit online. And if you have done that changes, and if the BAHA as a technical evaluation judge, if the technical evaluation judge finds that can be an elimination criteria for the teams as well. So it is a really strict rule. So do not do any sort of changes once the SCCS sheet is submitted. If you have any problems regarding the self-certification check sheet, please be free on the forum. Get your doubts cleared, because this is a really important part of technical inspection. Yeah, so moving forward, like as we all are automotive engineers and we all love automobile, so no matter you win or lose, you should always embrace the skills you have learned during the process. Yeah, so basically why this is a pro tip, because eventually whatever would happen at the event site will not determine who you are. So basically it's the skill you have acquired so far and what learnings you have in the journey that will eventually make you the person you want to be. Also, a pro tip from my personal side as well, that let's say if you're working from a steering team, try to learn good amount of things from the transmission team, from all the areas of the team, because eventually it will not be like nobody will ask you that in which part of work you did, because eventually if you are saying that I am a BAJA alumni or I am a BAJA participant, eventually everybody will look that you are having a good amount of automotive knowledge or automotive exposure so far. So it's important for you to learn all the skills related with all the departments, not too extreme, but yeah, to understand it in terms of every performance parameter, every technical small details which we encounter. So that's a pro tip from my side, that try to learn all the things from all the departments, because eventually you never know which thing which will help you in getting your coming job, or like in which area of domain you will go forward in your career. So it's important to do that. Yeah. So coming back to the part which are there in case of which were left off. So yeah, so these are the driver restraints. So basically, for the driver restraints, we already have some like many rules specified. So these are having a summarized structure here. So metal to metal quick release minimum 5 point. So it can be 5 point, 6 point, or 7 point. So 6 and 7 point seat belts should comply to the manufacturing guidelines, and also they have to show the manufacturing documents as well, that as per their recommendation we have mounted the seat belt design. So it is important to show in case of 6 point and 7 point. Yep. So the rating is mentioned here. Also it is present in the rule book. So yeah, the position of the this mounting tab of one seat belt. So from the shoulder level, so let's say this is the straight line of a shoulder, so the shoulder level of a driver, it should, the max to max, the mounting tab of this seat belt mounting shall be maximum 4 inches to the driver shoulder level. So it should not be greater than 4 inches. Also for the lateral shoulder, so it should be 7 to 9 inches depending on the size of the driver. Let's say if the driver is healthy, then it should be closer to 9 inches. If the driver is not that healthy, then it should be closer to 7 or 8 inches. So depending on the build of the driver, the health of the driver, it should be done. So yeah. So lap and anti-submarine belt mountings. Lap for the new teams, lap belts are the belts which cover your lap, and anti-submarine belt mountings are the belt which are coming between the between your two legs. So there are like 2 on the lap side, 2 on the shoulder side, and 1 is from the middle of 2 legs. So that's the 5 point seat belt mountings. So these are the criterias of the like the do's and don'ts. So this is the recommended, or this is as per the rule. This is an unexpected or I would say non-acceptable mounting structure. Also the lap belt positioning, so minimum of 3 inches and angle of 45 to 60 degrees. So yeah. Also regarding the seat mountings, so as we are already aware that the seat back angle, like the RRH or the firewall we say in simple, like 65 to 90 degrees from the horizontal. So there is an quite flexibility between the angle which you can have, but like this angle will be measured in case of technical inspection, and this should be same as that of SCCS. So very important part here. Yeah, the seat mountings. So on the bottom plane, there should be minimum 4 bolts. Minimum, this is the minimum criteria which is mentioned. You can use more number of bolt as well for the seats, because some seats are OEM procured seats, so they can have extra bolting arrangements as well to the belly pan. So like it's a minimum criteria. Maximum you can use 6 depending on whatever you want to do it. On the top plane, it means to say on the back of the driver, so minimum 2, so you can have 4 as well. So whatever you want to do it. Driver seat should be mounting on the sleeve tubes or tube welded at least secondary member. So yeah, like we already know the rules for the secondary and the primary member, which we already seen yesterday. Driver seat mounted tap requirement. So these are the minimum and maximum requirements of the driver seat mounting. So also an head restraint here. So head restraint is head restraints give you a good neck support for the driver, because in case of endurance, it's really important for drivers to comfort whenever they feel like whenever they are in a queue. So it gives you a really good relaxing feeling to the head restraint, and also it is a mandatory thing to have a head restraint, and it should be mechanically fastened. It should not be stick to the firewall. It should not be pasted. It should be mechanically fastened, and that mechanically fastening should be done with the help of fasteners. So yeah. Driver equipments. So yeah, so the driver equipments, as we are already aware that all the driver gears or driver equipments shall be SFI certified and should have less than 3 years old on the last day of competition. So these are the rules which we are already aware of. So in case of any doubts, you can also put it in the chat. We can also discuss in detail. Like we have Rulebook team as well with us. So if you have some really important doubts here, we can surely clear it off. Here, it's also important to follow this criteria, like follow this practice. Driver helmet, arm restraint, driver suit, SF, like this is the standard rating. Imprinted with college name and the permanent marker. So some of the teams like may lose their safety gears. So it is important to identify whose team is this. So it is also an accepted or I would say recommended practice that to have an imprinted college name and with a permanent marker so that it is identified. Also, .ISI and .ISI rated helmets are not allowed. So it is not allowed. So it is specifically mentioned here. So the style of the helmet is motocross. So what helmets are allowed? These are present here. Snail M2020 2015 EC standard. So and so forth. Like it's already mentioned in detail in Rulebook as well. Yeah, moving forward for the fuel system. So yeah, so fuel system in case of like now we'll go forward for the splash shield and the mounting of the fuel system, because this is a really safety critical, as well as this part is also many times teams are sent back to their pits to clear this point or to get it corrected. So please look into it seriously. Yeah, all vehicles shall have fuel system comprising of fuel tank, fuel hose, fittings, and splash shield. Entire engine is a part of fuel system. Like the fuel system, which is the tank which we have, is also part of engine. So that part will be checked by the engine bay at the very early stage of the technical inspection. So they are looking into this. So we already have the part number. Like everybody knows about this. So yeah, moving on the mounting, I think this part I'll go with the actual structure. So this I will not read the numbers which are present here because they will more or less confuse you. So to understand the idea or to understand the context behind it, let's discuss this part first, because this is more important for you to understand that how it should. If you are not aware about the mounting structure or mounting design, then it's really hard for you to understand whenever you're actually doing it. So you might face many problems there. Yeah. So fuel tank mounting, rubber isolating washers, like these are the part numbers, each fastener on both sides of the fuel tank and the mounting flange. Total of 8 washers are required. As you can see here, there are two types of mounting methods present here, like a fuel tank mounted on square and rectangular tubes. So as you can see on the bottom section of this is a square or rectangular tubes. You are free to use preferred mount. This is a preferred mounting design where you have a tubular, rectangular or square section which are there to mount. There are 4 bolts present here for mounting the fuel tank. And the second type is the fuel tank mounted with the C brackets. Like as you can see here, it looks like an hinge. It looks like an hinge there, but this is a C bracket present here. So it is also an accepted mounting for the fuel tank. As you can see on the right hand side, the structure of the fuel tank, the assembling sequence, or if you see a bit, like you already know the bill of material. So there are multiple things involved in this bolting structure. So there are bolts, metallic washers, rubber washers, lock nut, and the tubing part. So this should be the sequence, should be followed by the teams. And this is also important in case of you are using for the C bracket as well. So this is a common, common for both, I would say. So you can go through in detail about the requirements for the specific or specific dimensions for that. Yeah. So moving with the preferred mounting design. So for the rectangular and the square tube design. So on the left hand side, if you see it, this is an extruded part of this section, which has a cantilever bracket present here to support the bolt here. If you see it here closely, the dimensions are very strictly and specifically mentioned. So please try to follow them, because this is an important element here. So this is the design. These are the actual dimension which we should follow. So like this is the arc, this is the length, and so on and so forth. So this part is, I hope it should give you an overall understanding. Allowable cross section, like it should be C cross section. Gussets should be tapered, like you are already aware of these things. Like you should not have sharp edges. You should not have like extruded part out of it. So these are really small things which like will help you in reducing the rework at the event site. Lightning holes or cutouts other than the bolt hole are explicitly prohibited. Like as you can see here, it is strictly mentioned that whatever dimensions we have mentioned here should be followed strictly. Anything else which extra to this will be strictly prohibited and will be asked for you to change. So that's the important key takeaway. Yeah. So for the splash shield, so yeah, so the important element, like for the new teams, I would have a really quick understanding of what the splash shield is basically. Splash shield is a shield which protects the fuel whenever you are refueling, like at the time of endurance, you have to refuel multiple times. So it is really important that whenever you are refueling it, whatever the spillover part, because like you all know the Formula racing vehicles, so they have really short time for refueling, for changing of the consumables and everything. So this is one of the element present there. So the splash shield is basically to remove the spillover which is present near to the area of the fuel tank, and that should be taken away from the vehicle. And this part of the fuel tank for the splash shield should not have any accumulation in the splash shield. Basically, as you can see, there is a tapered section present here that shows that the vehicle, the fuel should directly be rerouted to the inclined surface and it should be removed from the vehicle as early as possible, because at the technical inspection, this is one of the element which will be checked, and this is also an elimination part. If the like elimination, I mean to say, if the teams are like not have done their good inventory, if they have not having a good uh, understanding of this rule, because at the event site, nobody, it's already too late for you to summarize the rules and everything. So it's important for you to understand this splash shield concept, and also to comply with the rules which are present here. So yeah, so so the all fuel lines, like as you are already know aware, that all should be the graded fuel lines, appropriate OEM labels. This is also an important part which is often looked in case of technical inspection, that OEM labels will give an better understanding that, okay, this is an certified and OEM product. So that will not consume your time in case of you have to, let's say, if the technical evaluation just ask you for a bills of this, so you have to show it there, because if you don't have labels, then it's not acceptable. So it's also an important element. Yeah, so you can go through this in detail from the rule book as well, but the idea is really simple. The spillover sections should not remain in the vicinity of the vehicle. It should be released from the vehicle as early as possible, because we have hot sections for engine, we have CVTs, we have gearboxes. So, and also the engine part is really close to the driver, so it can have and really hazardous effects in case of driving. So make sure that this splash shield is also taken care properly. Ergonomic requirements for safety, like we have already discussed, ergonomic part is also in case of chassis, but few parts which were kind of remained. So these are some of the parameters. If you see the images closely, let's start from the figure number 1, knee vertical clearance. So this is the side impact member, and the top section of the knee shall have maximum of 3 inches. So the maximum and the minimum, the words are really important here. So this rules will be taken really seriously in case of technical inspection. So make sure that less than or equal to minimum, maximum, you have a really good command on this, because the technical evaluation judge knows everything in and out. So you should also be able to answer and also be able to justify. That's how we have done it, right? So chest and torso clearance. So from the steering surface to the chest section, it shall be the distance of the steering wheel to the torso greater than or equal to 220 mm. So it should be greater or equal to 220 mm. So some of the teams make the cockpit so clumsy that the driver has to sit in a really opposite position. So that will have a really bad impact in case of ergonomic design. That shows that the teams have not put in efforts for the ergonomic design, because the ergonomic design will also show that your roll cage design is not to that quality, because eventually the dimensions of the roll cage are defined from the driver only. So this is an important part. Lateral clearance from the legs and the side impact member. So as you can see from the top view, if you see the portion from the knees to the side impact member or to the extreme of the roll cage, that should be greater than or equal to 76 mm, or that's the 3 inches. So 3 inches rule is there from all the periphery of the vehicle, from the driver vicinity. So everything should have a specific clearances present there. Yeah, some suggestions from our side, like driver safety should be prioritized at all levels. This is also an important and I would say the at utmost priority part for us. Avoid sharp edges. We already know that the sharp edges which are present on the roll cage should be trimmed, should be made smooth. Also for the firewall and body panels as well. It should have a really good feeling of having a smooth and curved surfaces. Should not have any sharp edges extruded outside of the vehicle periphery. ensure good visibility for the driver through FBM. So yeah, that's the good point which everybody might have taken care already. Triangulation area, which gives 10. This is also a element whenever the teams don't fulfill the criteria for the roll cage. So whenever there is an unsupported length, whenever there is an bend into the roll cage, and if they don't triangulate it, then the TJ might send you back and also add you the because we have seen ourselves these problems. So this is an important area also to look into. So yeah, I think that should be from my side. We are open for Q&A now. Yep, I think we are much in time. We can still go for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Mayur, for the presentation. There are some questions in the chat box which I would be answering one by one.
Yep, sure. Yep.
Yeah. So Rajveer, you had a question. Are there any electrical component used in eBaha but not mentioned in the rule book? See, it is a very generic question. There are n number of electrical components used in the eBaha. So if you want any information about any specific component, you can post it on the forum. We will get back to you. So we would encourage teams not to ask these type of open and generic question. Be quantitative and crisp in asking the questions up to the point. And Nikita Sone has a question explained regarding images submission of SCCS sheet. So what exactly you want to know about the image submission? Like in the forum, you have to submit the images. So if in case the manufacturing has not been done yet, so one of the team had a question like if the manufacturing has not been done yet, then what to do? So we have a last date of 10 December. So if till 10 December your manufacturing has not been done, then you can leave that section blank. But I hope every team would have completed the vehicle manufacturing by 10 December. So we hope that every team should come up with the clear images of all the components and all the views that has been clearly asked in the SCCS. So if you have any other query regarding to that, you can post it with respect to the image in the forum and we can get back on it. And we have again a question from Nikita. Team remark in SCCS sheet, what do we have to mention? See, we have a requirement section and we have a team remark and then we have a TJ remark. So in the team remark against that requirement, what values you are getting, whether you are complying that rule or not, you have to mention that in the team remark section. Raj has a question. Can you please explain about the bills and documentation part in SCCS? So for the bills and documentation parts for the SCCS, you have to, in the SCCS, you have to, whether in the remark section, you have to write whether that bill is available or not. And if there are any specific specification of the material or number required, you have to mention that also in the remark section for the bills and documentation part in the SCCS. And the original bill shall be carried to the event site for checking purpose. Kunal has a question, what if we're not able to submit some picture in SCCS sheet as we have not completed our manufacturing? We have a deadline of 10 December, so I hope you will be able to complete the manufacturing till then. If not, let us discuss it over the forum till then. When should we submit? That is already mentioned in the forum, the deadline, Vinay. Is there any minimum clearance between engine and the firewall? No, there is no specific distance between engine and the firewall, but it should not touch the firewall. And if exhaust ink is facing towards it, then 100 mm minimum clearance is mandatory. What are the OEMs that supply the rated fuel line for MBAHA? That is clearly mentioned in the rule book for like what exactly you want to know. The rated fuel lines are already mentioned in the rule book, and I think you want to know about the vendors Am I correct, Anirudh? You can reply on the chat box if you want to know about the vendors. Like the rating for the fuel line is all very clearly mentioned in the rule book. Gargia, I have a question. Could you please elaborate on the SCCS document submit form? What exactly you want to know about the SCCS? You want to help? You want help on filling the SCCS, or what exactly you want to know? What remarks we have to give in SCCS? That is this question I have already covered. And Varun has a question, if the TEJ has given the feedback on the SCCS, are we allowed to act on that before the physical TI? Yes, if a TEJ has given a feedback on your submission on SCCS, you are definitely allowed to act on those before the physical TI. What we want as a TEJ, that your vehicle should clear the TI dynamic and static, both the events. You not be only elaborated for TI. Amrut has a question. Anirudh, I want to know about the vendor that vendors you need to find on your own. I don't think we can help you with the vendors here. And those are easily available. You can consult other teams also. And Gargia has a question, need to know whether to fill it by hand and scan and upload. It would be better if you can upload it with the soft copy, because that would be clear to read. Arashil has a question, will there be any penalty for not submitting the SCCS? If you don't submit the SCCS, we won't be able to do the pre-technical inspection, which is a very crucial part, because pre-technical inspection at college end or at your end is a very crucial part, because your vehicle would be TI ready and you can clear the TI in one go. So this might affect them team if they are not clearing the TI as early in the event. If so, there are many benefits of clearing the TI early in one go, like you would be having more attempts for the dynamic events and you would be having more time. One question I missed. Amrut Pandey had a question. Any clearance required between the rotor casing and the gearbox? So for the rotor casing and the gearbox, there is no such rule. But if you would see figure B56 powertrain guard example, below that we have a note, all guards, whether chain drive or CVT, must maintain a clearance of at least 15 mm from any nearby roll cage member or suspension component. This is applicable to front differential and steering components in the front side of the cockpit. One more question we have from Nikita. Do we have to add images in SCCS Excel sheet or need to add it in folder? And even do we have to make a different image for sheet images? This information is already uploaded in the forum. You can have it there. Madhesh sir, will the TEJ visit our premises for pre-technical inspection? Madhesh, this is at the will of the team. So we would be encouraging virtual also. So this is completely at the will of the team. There is no mandatory requirement for it. If I missed out any question of any team, they can repost it now. Or any team is having any other additional questions, you can repost it now, or any of the doubts from yesterday which you are remaining, because yesterday we had some connectivity issues at our end. So if any doubts you have, we can clear it over here right away. I think teams don't have any new doubts. So I would, at last, I would like to add one point. There may be some gray areas in the rule book or SCCS sheet. So in comparison to SCCS sheet and rule book will always supersede any of the sheets. And if there are any gray areas in the rule book, and in case of any benefit of doubt, driver safety and the track people safety would be given the utmost importance. Teams should not misunderstand that for the gray areas, benefit of doubt will go to them. The benefit of doubt will always go to the driver safety. So align your vehicle in accordance to that, because that's the utmost important thing which we want to have in our event. And hope you all will enjoy the event fully. And we are up with the time, and already even there are no questions in the chat box. Still, if any team has any question, they can reach out on the forum and we would be happy to help them. Thank you all the team for your valuable time and for attending this webinar. And at last, thanks all the presenters. With this, I think we should end this meeting. Anybody having any other point to add on?
Just one last
Yeah.
thing from my side. Best of luck to all the teams, and see you at the event. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. See you at the event with full enthusiasm. Thank you.